Morning, y'all. Welcome to Happy Saturday. And I'm not very happy right now. I just broke something that was one of my favorites literally like 22 seconds ago. I had a terracotta pot, one of those trays that was really old. Anyway, I just dropped it. So, oh well. This too will pass. So, welcome to Seed Starting Saturday, friends. I know that we're going to have a lot of newbies on here today because I showed my post. If you didn't see it this morning on Instagram, I'm pretty sure it's on Facebook too, of me harvesting sunflowers out in the garden, saying, it's early bird seed starting time. And I got a lot of comments from people that weren't familiar. So I'm going to be kind of doing my first early bird seed starting and kind of just going through the run through of that. So part of why I broke my favorite terracotta tray was that we have a new setup. We had to move our setup for the shop and show on Friday because we had to have an electrical problem kind of investigated. And this is a stack. This is last year's what would have been trash, compost, which we dried based on my good friend Ellen Frost of Local Color Flowers, the local designer in Baltimore that only uses local flowers. And she saves everything. She doesn't compost anything that she doesn't absolutely have to. So she's the one that encouraged me to do this. And I learned kind of about that in her course. Anyway, we hung all this at the top of right on the ceiling right above me and dried it. And then this is what it's created. And now I see that where I'm sitting right now, obviously my goal is to have it fill the entire screen. Not doing it, but that's okay. Anyway, yeah, that booger is broken a bazillion pieces down there. So, if you are new here, welcome aboard. We meet here on Saturday mornings doing a little bit of seed starting, kind of talking about what's going on here on my farm. And if you haven't ever connected with us before anywhere, I am a commercial cut flower farmer. This is my 25th year. And in fact, we aren't really even growing on a high production scale anymore. We do more teaching and sharing that kind of information. And I'm located in the middle of the city. I am 100% surrounded by houses. So I have 2 3/4 acres or so. And on that, we did big production for a lot of years. And that's kind of what I talk about, how we grow all of these gorgeous flowers outside in a garden. We have no hoop or greenhouses. We do all of our seed starting. And this is just a giant garage that I'm in, that I have a little grow room in. And so anybody can do what I'm talking about today, whether you are a home gardener, a wannabe flower farmer, or a flower farmer and you want to scale your business. Sunflowers, as I know those of you that join me a lot have heard me say a bazillion times, one season of high production sunflowers bought me a $31,000 John Deere and the implements. And so sunflowers are probably one of the most undervalued in most growers' eyes crop. But when you grow them right and grow them consistently and grow the right ones, then they can become a major part of your business. And if you're a home gardener, who doesn't want sunflowers all season long, right? So before we jump into that, let's talk about, first off, what is going on here on the farm. Well, I just looked at the 2-week forecast. And we are still like just dead in the middle of perfect cool flower weather. Cool flowers are those plants that are cool season hardy annuals that love to be planted and grow and thrive in cool to cold conditions. And I mean, we're living it right now. This is going to be one of those years that, I wished I'd have planted more of certain ones because they're going to have such a great year. They're going to come on earlier. They're going to last longer. They're going to go longer if we keep them harvested. And, you're going to get additional weeks of harvest. I can remember Jonathan Lease, who is a good friend and one of our instructors for the no-till microscale course. I remember him sharing, I think it was last year or the year before, When the season starts early like this and you're prepared, and you should be prepared if you have cool flowers planted, you're going to get weeks of additional harvest. That's like bonus money, y'all, bonus crops. Um, and that doesn't work out for you very well if you are only selling to farmers markets and your markets don't open until much later in the season. But this is going to be a good year, but we're still not really starting, other than sunflowers today. We're not really starting our warm season tender annuals yet. It's still too early. Bobo will start next week. I mean, she gathered all of our supplies last week. She got all of her seeds from the warehouse and just got all of our peas in a row, right? So she can just hit the ground running next week. Because let me tell you, there is no more disappointment, as I have lived many times, is to go to grab the seed of a very important crop and there are none. So that needs to be part of your preparation, is checking your stuff before you need your stuff, right? So I want to remind everybody that we do have a phone app. If you're not familiar with that, you can go to your phone app store and find it. It's free. All you have to do is download it. It's Gardener's Workshop Live Shop. And the reason I'm telling you this is the show that's on Fridays. We always have special offers sometimes, or special bundles. And those offers and bundles are good until Sunday morning at 8 a.m. So you can go in there and check it out. I'll tell you what I talked about yesterday, kind of more in depth, as this is the time of the year for it, is I talked about how I use the Bio 360, which is the biodegradable film that looks like plastic, but it's 100% compostable. And I've used it probably for 10 or 12 years now, 10 years probably. Totally love it. It allowed me to ramp my farm up. There's definitely a learning curve to learn how to lay it by hand. And I did it for years by hand. I now have a tractor that does it. But there is a YouTube video, and I don't know what the name of it is, but I think Bio 360 is in the title. I did like a 10 or 15 minute walk around telling and showing why I use it and how I use it. So check that out. And you can find that over in the app. And what is the special deal this week for, like, if you need a 6-pack of Bio 360, which is 6 50-foot pieces, the most shipping you'll pay is $9.95. If you're just buying seeds, we pay the shipping for seeds. So it's free seed packet only shipping and a cap of $9.95. So check it out over in the app. I mean, and not all of our products are over there, just the stuff that we can make it work out for shipping is over there. And so anything like the supersized heat mat, the grow lights, all of those you'll still find over on our big website. So I'm just telling people there's different reasons. There's reasons to go check out all of them. And in the app, you can actually shop anytime. We have people shopping there 24/7 now, not just during the shows. And you can go back and watch the replays of the shows. And there's video clips attached to the product. So a lot of fun stuff going on over there. So let's talk about, this is my prop from yesterday. This is the Bio 360, y'all. It's black on one side and either gray or white. They go back and forth, has the same effect. We install it with the black side up when afternoon temperatures on the day that you're making the bed and when you're going to be transplanting. If it's going to be above 80 degrees, because you'll cook your seedlings, you always make the bed with the light side up. If it's not going to be above 80 degrees, we make the beds with black side up. We use generally the black side up when we're planting fall, winter, and very early spring plantings. The black side up just helps the sun heat the soil even more. But then when we hit spring and here where we are, we can still be having 50-degree nights and the afternoons heat up to like 85 and 90 degrees. So we just start using the light side up when we start planting all of our warm season tender annuals. So you can check that out if you want to. So let's talk sunflowers. So last year was the first year that I shared my early bird method. As I mentioned earlier, sunflowers were a major crop for our farm. And it's not that we grew so many, we did grow a lot, but they weren't like the lion's share of what we grew. What I figured out and learned is after I had my customer base set up and running, having a consistent supply of a staple flower week after week, guess what? They would buy them week after week after week. So I grow. So first off, there's many different families of sunflowers or varieties. Like for instance, Pro Cuts are the ones that I tend to grow. Pro Cuts is a series. I think now there's 13 or 14 different colors. They're all Pro Cuts and they have different colors. Then there's the Sunrich series. There's the Vincent series. There's so many different series. It's so overwhelming to go to some of these big websites that sell all the different sunflowers. You're like, oh my gosh, where do I start? And that's kind of where I was many years ago until I learned from another grower why she grew Pro Cuts, and it has turned out to work the same for me. And I'm just offering it up. That the reason I grow Pro Cuts is they are quick from seed to bloom, about 50 to 60 days, depending on what time of year it is and the temperatures. And within the Pro Cuts that all kind of have the same characteristics, there's like 12 or 13 different colors. So you can change it up a little bit if you want to. But I will say this about that. So for 8 years, we were in what was called high production. I started farming. My first commercial garden was in 1998. Let's see, this is 2023. This is our second year. The past 2 years, we have not sold flowers at all. We only grow flowers for educational purposes, meaning for pictures and videos and that kind of stuff. So we still grow a gigantic garden. It's just not, we don't have to worry about selling it all, right? We have somewhere for it to go, but we're not actually selling it. And so prior to that, we were in what was called high production. High production is when we were servicing 23 florists, 2 supermarket chains. Both chains had about 6 to 8 stores. Some weeks it varied. Plus, we had our members only on-farm flower market, and we had our Bosaic subscription. Because friends, let me tell you something. When we were at the max here on my farm, we literally had 1.5 acres in production. And when I say that, that means in working garden. Rarely, if ever, were we harvesting from more than 1/3 of that space. Because let's just say this third we're cutting from, this third is actually being planted, and this third down there is maybe, has been planted and is growing up, or it's in a cover crop or whatever. So it's not that we had 1.5 acres that we were cutting from all at one time. So during that high production time, we were producing 10 to 15,000 stems of flowers a week. In season from the field. And that is a lot of blooming flowers. And so we had our fingers in a lot of pies. And that's why people say, oh my gosh, you had so many markets. Well, and when I say markets, I don't mean farmers markets. I mean different areas to sell flowers. And we did farmers markets for 14 years. I didn't put them in that lineup. But when you have a lot of flowers, you rarely, if ever, sell out. I mean, to truly sell out, you don't ever want to sell out. That's the point. You never want people to go away with not having flowers. But anyway, during those 8 years that we were having high production, I planted 1,200 or 10 of the 128 trays every week, 10 of them. Okay. And I planted the same sunflower in the same color over and over and over again. Because guess what, friends? People bought them week after week. And when you're doing that kind of volume of flowers like we were, the confusion of what color are these? Did they get mixed in with the others? Because, you cut them when they're almost tight, right? And so we grew Pro Cut orange every single week after week. And the bottom line is that our commercial customers bought them every single week. They didn't need the variety of color like we tend to think that they probably want. Anyway, So here's how the system works. We start as early as we can and we plant, once we start, we plant sunflowers every single week. That means that once they start blooming, you should have sunflowers coming in every week. If you're growing at least one variety and color each and every week so your timing doesn't get off. Some people, as you'll see me do, I'll change up and add colors in throughout the season, but I typically grow one color week after week, or at least try to attempt to do that. Because even though within the same family, the colors can have a little bit of off time, and that can really screw you up sometimes. So the early bird portion of this is, y'all, I have new glasses too. I don't know if anybody's noticed, but I'm having the worst time seeing. Everything's a little blurry. Yesterday, I'm just now realizing, yesterday when we were doing the show, everything was a little fuzzy, and it is again today. So it is definitely these glasses. So the early bird is I learned years ago that sunflowers, while they are a warm season tender annual, they're much cold tolerant. They're more cold tolerant than other warm season annuals. Like, for instance, you could never do this with the celosia. Celosias love it hot, and they would just shrivel up and shiver and just pout for the rest of their life. So I learned that I can push the envelope on sunflowers. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. I'm going to say it again. Here's the thing. You don't put all your eggs in one basket. So we are pushing the envelope and starting these sunflowers so that they'll be going out into the garden as transplants 3 to 4 weeks before my last spring frost, because I have learned that when I hoop and cover them, immediately when I plant them early like this, that provides enough protection and concentrates the bright sun that they don't just grow, they thrive. And last year we had so many people that had sunflowers for Mother's Day, right? So, but what I want people to understand is you would not use up all your garden space. You would not. And so, like, for instance, I have been doing last year, I think I did 3 128 trays a week. For this early bird, I'm only going to do 1 tray. I'm going to mix it up in there. And in addition to not putting all your eggs in one basket, so don't use up all your space and then have them get whacked. You could have, depends on where you are. So my goal is that I am starting these sunflowers 6 weeks before my last expected frost. So if you live in Minnesota, you probably should not be starting sunflowers yet. It's 6 weeks before your last historic frost. So you're going to grow them up for 3 weeks indoors or outdoors. If you're in the South, you can probably do it outdoors. Here, we would be growing them under grow lights until they can go outside to the garden, where I'm going to plant them and hoop and cover them with lightweight row cover, all of which you can find if you need it and need to know more about the weight. We have it at thegardenersworkshop.com. The weights, the hoops, and the row cover, 50 foot, 250 foot, 500 feet, and 1,000 feet. So you wouldn't attempt this unless you have a way to protect them, right? So the other thing about sunflowers that I'll talk about this each week when we're kind of doing this is you need to you choose the colors you want to plant based on when are these sunflowers going to be blooming. See, my goal has always been to have sunflowers to bloom to go with my cool flowers. I lack focal flowers in spring. A lot of my cool flowers are kind of fillery, kind of pretty. I mean, like Bells of Ireland and Feverfew and Yarrow. I mean, they got snaps but I need some of those round zinnia-like flowers, right? So sunflowers are perfect. So I select the colors to grow from the ProCut family that are perfect. And for those, and I actually would have had 2 more, but I could not find the seed here this morning. I don't know where Bobo stashed them away. So my goal to grow for the next few weeks is going to be the ProCut White Light and the ProCut White Night. Those are the white petal with the brown disc and the white petal with the chartreusey gold kind of disc, which is just so gorgeous. Think about them in spring. They are absolutely perfect. People, first off, y'all don't understand if you've not grown these special colors, which can have their little hiccups, but people don't even think they're sunflowers. They don't recognize them. So those, we're growing the Pro Cut White Light and White Night, and I'm actually growing the mix that we actually mix in house. So I didn't have to get two separate packs, right? So you can buy the mix together, and you can find that over you can find it on the app or over on our website, right? And then guess what we have in stock, y'all? The Pro Cut Peach. This peach, you know, it's definitely a soft yellow sunflower, but it has a peach glow about it. When you line it up next to all the other sunflowers, you definitely think peach. It is so beautiful. That would be a perfect spring color, right? And then I'm also starting the Sun-Filled Green, which is not a Pro Cut. It has the same 50 to 60 day window from seed to bloom, but this is that green sunflower head that we use while it's still in bud. We don't grow it for the funky looking petals that it creates. We use it in bud as filler. It actually looks kind of like, I can't even think of the name of it right now. It just has layers and layers of sepals, and it is really, really beautiful. So we're actually going to be starting those. So what I didn't have that I would normally be starting here today is the go-to color that I grow every week. It's one of the consistent ones, is the Gold Light. That is the one that has a true gold petal, but it's totally chartreuse green. If you look up at the emblem that our name is on in the corner of this screen, that's exactly what it looks like. It's Gold Light Pro Cut, and that's my steady one. And then the other one was Lemon Pro Cut. The lemon has a brown disc center and a soft baby yellow. And I will say the peach is very buttercreamy kind of color. So how do we actually do this? So commercial growers typically always start seeds to everything indoors that they possibly can. And people are thinking, why in the world would they do that? Can't you sow sunflowers outside? Sure you can, but you have more success, less labor, and a better end crop when you plunk transplants into the ground and then you leave them. There's no hoeing, there's no weed prevention steps that are needed to be done. So we start sunflowers. There's a couple of different ways you can start them. We start them in 128 plug trays, and this is just filled with a 50-50 mix of any potting soil that you can get. It does not need to be blocking mix or anything special. So just any potting soil, and we mix it 50-50 with compost, not only to make it come alive, but to also kind of cut the cost, right? I mean, potting soil is fairly expensive. I will show you, if you're a home gardener, how I would do that differently than this in just a moment here. So let's just turn this down. So I have my tray that is filled with the blocking mix. This is dry. I typically do, I did forget. See, I forgot a step, y'all. This is the first time of the year, right? So that is, how do we identify our trays? Now, particularly if you are a flower farmer, you better put tape and a date and a name on every single tray you do, because once they start growing and you have several weeks at growing together, side by side, it is hard sometimes to tell. It's like, oh, I wonder, is that the ones that I'm supposed to be planting? Because these almost look like it. So really check it out. So we use masking tape and my favorite garden marker. You'll find that over at thegardenersworkshop.com too. This does not fade with UV rays and moisture. And so I use that. And so what I put on my tape is today's date, which is, what is today? I don't even know. It is my anniversary. Y'all, I am so bad. I am so bad. 28 years today. And I'm starting 3 sunflowers. So we have Sunfill and Peach and the white mix. All right. So I put these on the side of the tray. The masking tape for a long time, for many years, I could not figure out a good way to mark my trays. And then I went to one of my vegetable growing friends, Big Farm, to pick up some stuff. And I said, "Hey, what do you mark your trays with?" She said, "Masking tape." She said, "I've used it for years. It holds up like a gem." 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So how many are we doing? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. All right. Y'all, since it's like I've never done this before, right? So the peach is going to get the most, and I'm going to do 5 of each and 6 of them. All right. So I've marked my tray. So I use masking tape and this pen, and that's what I use on my soil blocking trays, on any trays. So now we have marked our, so this is Sunfill. So let's do this one first. So this is how we do it, and it is super quick and easy. If you're a commercial grower, you're always looking. Time is money, y'all. You may not know that yet. Time is my most precious asset. And you're always looking to do things the quickest that does the job. And so when you're not having to talk and carry on, with people, this goes super fast. Another piece of advice is you have got to plant them every week if you want to have sunflowers every week. And if you don't plant them, are y'all believing this? I dumped out exactly enough. Bingo. All right, so that's all of the Sunfill. If you don't plant them, you're not going to harvest them. And that's what got me. What's next? Peach. That's how I first hired my niece Kelly. She had just had a baby and wanted to stay home with her kid, and she was not even a gardener. She said, "Aunt Lisa, I'll do anything you tell me to if I can work for you like 1 or 2 days a week, and my mom's going to keep the baby." So I said, "Perfect. Why don't you become our seed starter?" And I taught Kelly how to start seed, and her first job every Monday morning was to start our sunflowers. And that's how I got onto a regular schedule of doing it. You have to do it, y'all. And I know as for me, as a busy young grower, I would always say, "All right, let's go out there and get the flowers cut." That's the bottom line product, right? You got to have them. And we would be either so exhausted or just never get finished cutting because we had so many darn flowers that the seeds would never get started in a timely manner. And before you know it, it's the end of the week and you haven't started your sunflowers. And then that just is what all of that kind of together, having Kelly do it, is what led us to become excellent succession planters. Because she, when she came to the office or here on the farm in the morning, she came inside here and got down to work, where the rest of us were hitting the fields and either planting or cutting or whatever. And so you have got to make seed starting a top priority, is what I'm saying to you. All right, one left, and you can see just how quick this really can be. And I'll talk about show you what we're going to do next. So I've dropped one seed on the top of each square, right? Sunflowers need darkness, prefer darkness to germinate. And so I'm just going to place my fingers on top of the sunflowers and just push them down into the plug tray. And that is going to create the darkness. Now, if I were to peek and look down, some of these, when you look at them, you can still see the seed. But when I take these into my grow room and water them in with a sprinkler head watering can, that is going to wash the soil off the sides of the blocking of the cell, and that is going to cover the seed. So you literally don't have to do any other steps. Because, friends, I'm telling you, it doesn't seem like much, but when you're running a farm and you have 42 other jobs to do or a bazillion other seeds to start, every step counts. So that's how it looks when I'm finished with this process, right? So what I would do next is take this tray into the grow room, put it on the floor because I have a drain in there. Maybe you take it outside. Bobo usually takes it outside when she used to do it and waters it in really well. And you ought to check one of the cells to see just how well did you really. When you think you've watered well enough, you ought to dig around in one of the cells and make sure that they really have gotten wet. So let me show you, before I give you the rest of the steps, let me tell you how, if you are a home gardener and you want to try this too, but you don't need 128 sunflowers, you just want to have a few, because remember, you're going to be doing this every single week. And you can have a designated spot in your bed. And I'll tell you, this is where Bio360, which I'll talk about the rest of the story in a minute, but what part of that story is that we plant sunflowers typically into open beds, no film on them because they're so quick to bloom from seed, right? However, if you are a home gardener or a small farmer and you want to prepare one long bed and plant each week succession after succession, you have to do something to keep the weeds from sprouting down there where you're 4 weeks away from planting, right? You can do a couple of things. You could either make the bed and put Bio360 on it, which blocks the light, or you can use a silage tarp. Silage tarp is what we typically do. We prepare a bed, and I think this year we'll probably have our beds in quarters, so it'll take us 4 weeks to get a bed planted. Well, we are going to have to cover that bed, so we have cut a silage tarp into 5-foot wide, 50-foot strips, which is how long our beds are, and we will plant the first succession, and then we'll cover the rest of the bed with that tarp, right? And then each week when Bobo plants, she'll just fold the tarp back. And then when you're done, when you go to plant, there's no weed growth ahead of you, right? All right, so let's just look. Maybe I'll do it right on top. Let's look at this. So if I was a home gardener and I was going to start a few sunflowers, I would use the 2-inch block. And I've made 2 different sets here. I don't know if y'all can tell the difference. This one had the insert on the blocker, which makes a perfect hole to receive the small block to come up. And I made some with just the dibble still on it. This is how they come, with a little nipple on it to make a hole to receive a seed. Typically, for me, I use the one that has the insert on it, because when we put our inserts on our 2-inch blocker, we just leave it on there. And I would just drop a seed down in that hole, and then I would just grab I would do this over next to where my tray is, and then I would just drop a little dab of wet soil on top of it, and you're done. I mean, it's super quick and easy, right? And so with this, you would have to push it down in there. So let me open up another one of these sunflowers. And I did not bring a toothpick over here. Which are these? This is the white light. All right, so if I was a home gardener, this is typically what I would do, is I would just drop one into the bottom of each of those insert holes, and then I would just drop a dab. I literally use one of the little wooden plant markers, it looks like a popsicle stick, and just grab a dab and just put it on top, and that's it. You're done. If you have the dibble still on, you can do basically the very same thing. You can just drop them in the hole and put a little dab on top of it. And literally that's it. That covers them and creates the darkness. And then you treat the way that they get sprouted and cared for is almost the same. So what's next? So I take them in the plug tray into the grow room, put it on the ground, water it. Then they all go onto a seedling heat mat. Y'all, heat is what makes seeds sprout quicker, more uniformly and to grow a super strong root system. I often hear from people, oh my gosh, when I try to pull my sunflowers out, they have the puniest little root system. Well, as the wheel turns, when you talk to them, they didn't use a heat mat. I mean, there are reasons that there are all these steps, and there's a reason that commercial growers do it the way that they can. Yeah, you can fudge it and do it other ways, and that's great. But if you want to do it quick and easy and be successful, we put them onto a seedling heat mat. That would be true for the soil blocks and the plug trays. Then once 50% of them start to sprout, we would move them either under grow lights. So, because let me tell you, sunflowers are quick growers. They will quickly get tangled up and stretch and get long, and then they're total waste. You've lost it. So you can only do this if you have grow light space available or greenhouse. But because for us, it's too cold outside. It's not that it's too cold that it would kill them, but they wouldn't grow. They'd just sit there and shiver, right? So you have to kind of think this process out a little bit before you actually jump in. So I put them on heat. Once 50% germinates, I move them off of the seedling heat mat. Its job is done. And I put them under grow lights. And they would grow there until they're 2 to 3 weeks old, or about 2 weeks old, actually. And then I might pop them out onto the carport with a little bit of maybe like just during the day. If nights, like our nights, we still are going almost to freezing, I would definitely bring them in at nights, but we're going to like 70 degrees in the afternoons. So each morning I come in, I pull the sunflowers, put them out in full blasting sun for the plug trays, and let them spend the day out, and then I bring them in for night. Soil blocks, of course, you can't put out. They have to have roof protection so that if it rains, it doesn't destroy your blocks. So I have a carport, which provides the morning and the afternoon sun. So that's where they would go to get hardened off. However, hardening off at this time of the year, because when you're planting early bird sunflowers, you are going to be putting them under hoops and covers, right? Because they need that to actually make them be early. And so that kind of provides those hardening off conditions. You know, the lightweight row cover blocks the wind and concentrates the heat of the sunshine during the day. It's really pretty surprising. Several years ago, I think it was the year I was the year we were shooting for my book, Vegetables Love Flowers. And I was obsessed with trying to get everything in early, as I am this year too, for the next book that's coming, which I think we'll be announcing the name and showing the cover here very, very soon. I made all of our beds early, made them black side up, for the first warm season tender annuals, and I hooped and covered them before anything was even planted, trying to just kind of warm the environment up in the soil. And I had thermometers under all the tunnels, and it worked like a gem, but it was a lot of extra work. So you've got to be willing. If you want to plant early bird sunflowers and succeed, you've got to have hoops and row cover to finish the story, right? So we plant them. Our beds are 30 inches wide. We put 5 rows, because what a lot of people don't understand is single stem sunflowers, you control the size of the blooms by how you space them in the garden. These Pro Cuts, when we space them, like I was just saying, 5 rows in a 30-inch bed, which makes them 6 inches apart, right? And then we put them 6 inches apart in the row. That grows the perfect 3 to 4 inch bloom. If you planted those same sunflowers 12 inches apart, they'd get this big. Well, those aren't good cut flowers. So you 100% control the size. And so we plant the transplants when they're 2 to 3 weeks old, when Bobo can pull on the stem and the whole cell comes out without you feeling like you're ripping the stem from the roots. And I'm telling you, friends, warm conditions to grow them is what creates that. That's when she plants them. And for us in our environment, that's typically 2.5 weeks. Then she plants them. She hand waters them in with a wand. We do not lay Bio 360, and we do not use lay irrigation, because think about this. These seeds are from seed to bloom, let's just say in 60 days. When you're planting them at, say, 3 weeks old, a third of their life is already over, and they're quick growers. And so they're going to quickly grow up and shade out the ground. And you might get a few weeds pop up, but not anything. And actually, sunflowers have a little bit of an allopathic effect, meaning certain things do not germinate from the water that runs off their leaves has a chemical in it that helps to prevent other things from germinating, but not everything. Anyway, so we hand water them. We do not lay irrigation. And now keep in mind that we get like 50 some inches of rain a year here where I am in southeastern Virginia. We almost always get more rain than we actually want around here. So going without irrigation is not really that risky. And we found if the sunflowers get well rooted in and well established, they can face drought pretty well. So, and we do not net them. So I don't do 3 things that I do for everything else we grow pretty much. No Bio 360, no irrigation, and no netting. And why is that? Because we planted 1,200 a week for 26 weeks for years. There's no way we could have, it was just too many steps to make it profitable. And we found that they do great. I mean, the risk of some of them going down in a storm is high. It happens, but we're willing to make that risk based on what it takes to install all of those pieces, right? So the sunflower story is that sunflowers are a staple flower, which if you are new to me and you're like scratching your head about being a flower farmer, there is a lot of different avenues to pursue becoming a domestic grower, meaning a grower that sells your flowers locally. And I also want to add that most people don't get it, that there is in the United States alone, $7 billion in cut flowers every year. I'll say that again. $7 billion of cut flowers are sold in the United States every year. There is no ceiling. There is for domestic growers. Yeah, there might be a ceiling at farmers markets or all these obvious ways that people that are following other people that are kind of new in the industry. But when you really want to get down to business, there are other opportunities. And we exploited all of them. And I ended up matching the method of selling to my lifestyle. You know, let's just say you're thinking, oh my gosh, I want to grow flowers. I'm a designer and I want to grow flowers and I want to do events. Well, that is so awesome. That is the highest dollar per stem, actually. But guess what? You're going to work every weekend and every holiday for the rest of your career. And that's not what I wanted to be off Saturday and Sunday. And I wanted to work Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. till about 3 o'clock. And that's the way I built my business. And sunflowers were a big part of that. So I wanted to grow the flowers that people in the flower industry used every single week, week after week after week after week, not special colors for special events. And sure, some of my flowers got used by my florist for weddings and that kind of stuff, you know, especially the gorgeous colors of, you know, peach celosia and all that kind of stuff. But I grew the staple flowers that I sold the same thing to everybody, whether it was farmers markets, supermarkets, florists, our members only market, our bouquet subscription. There were no specials, meaning that there was just one industry that took them. And I think that was the secret to my success. Not only were they a low investment to get in, high return, and anyway, y'all, I've gone down a rabbit hole. Sorry. So sunflowers are huge. And that's what I'll be doing on Saturdays here with you each week, is starting mine. And because this all started during the pandemic, right? When we sent everybody home that March of 2020, I said, oh my gosh, what are we going to do about the sunflowers? And I thought, oh gosh, I'm kind of lonely here by myself because I sent the staff home, right? We didn't know what was going on back then. Well, we still don't know what's going on, right? I said, I would think it was meet me on the porch is what it started as. And I would sow the weekly sunflowers because Bobo wasn't here to do it. And anyway, it is really grown into something that really struck a chord with people. And anyway, so we have a lot to talk about, and I'll just scroll through here and see if there's a couple of questions that I can answer for you before I get off of here. So I want to say again that you can find all the sunflowers. Oh, and you can find this. We now have a new sunflower succession collection. It's actually on the app and it's on the website. But I'll say again, on the app, we have free seed shipping over there. So you can get 6 jumbo packs of sunflowers with the purpose of succession planting them each week, right? So you can check that out. But you can find the row covers, hoops, weights, seeds, plug trays, everything you need over at thegardenersworkshop.com. And many of those things over on our app, which you'll find in your app store, and it's Gardeners Workshop Live Shop. So do you plant Gumphrena? Gumphrena, what a story about Gumphrena. Gumphrena and I got a divorce about 8 years ago, maybe 9 or 10 years ago. When I went into high production, I dumped Gumphrena. Gumphrena, but it's back. We're happily married again. Gumphrena, which is Globe Amaranth for anyone that doesn't. Oh, there's probably some right here behind me. Right here. Can y'all see that? That's what that is. And here's a whole bunch more right here. Gumphrena is the little ball. And it seems like an insignificant crop because it is small, but I'm here to tell you that little round ball bouncing above a bouquet is like nothing else. There is no other flower that can replace what Gumphrena does. I divorced her because until you really learn how to harvest her efficiently and quickly, I had people threaten Bobo. Y'all know Bobo, right? Bobo's worked with me for like 13 years. Bobo threatened to quit if I didn't stop growing Gumphrena when we were in high production. Because I'll say it again, we were growing 10 to 15 or harvesting 10 to 15,000 stems a week in season. That is a lot of flowers. When you're harvesting those kinds of volumes, you cannot grow needy things. You just don't need to grow needy things. So Gumphrena got dumped and we brought it back about 3 or 4 years ago because my sister said, oh my gosh, can we have Gumphrena again? And she's so right. Not only is it an amazing, you can always sell it to florists. They love that stuff. But for mixed bouquets, straight bunches, supermarkets, it's just a hot seller. And then if you grow too much, which we did last year, that's why there's so much of it in my dry wall here. You can literally, what I did is let it all get mature, went out there and grabbed the canopy, like it made it like this long, grabbed it and cut it and rubber banded it right in the field because Gumphrena holds its color. It is a great wreath ingredient, Christmas ornament, tussy mussies, all that kind of stuff, right? So Gumphrena is super easy. I actually start that in the small block. And we have all the colors over on our website. Totally love that stuff. All right, so here's a good one. Facebook user. On today's Instagram, you are stripping off leaves of sunflowers still standing in the garden. What variety? Some so much shorter than I expected. So I thought this was going to say, because I saw this, I didn't have time to answer it. I was actually starting some seeds this morning. Y'all, we're germinate testing those. If you're going in the app, the special cut flower pepper, which is called Roosters, which just aren't available anywhere. We have a grower growing it and we're doing our germination test and it will be packaged soon. So you need to get on that wait list, which is only in the phone app. You need to get on that. Anyway, I was starting more of those this morning because we have to do all this germination testing. The sunflowers today that I'm stripping on Instagram are the gold, light gold, gold light, which is a pro cut. And the other thing that, I'm trying not to overload y'all too much, but the other thing that affects sunflowers is day length. Even though pro cuts, as there are many other what are called day length neutral sunflowers, meaning they will grow and bloom, but Daylight definitely affects that. And height is one of those things, and bloom size. So like these sunflowers that I'm starting now will naturally, just because of day length and cool temperatures, will be a little smaller than they will be when I grow these same sunflowers on the same spacing in June, or start them in June to plant them out when the days are longer. So those, I'm trying to think what time of year that, I don't remember what time of year those were. But, and also if it's a droughty, because, we don't irrigate our sunflowers, right? If it was a droughty season, that'll keep them shorter. And so and several people on that post this morning said, why are you stripping? Well, they must not have watched the entire reel, because at the end of the reel, I go through and strip them, and then I come back and harvest them. That's the point, that they're all stripped when you harvest them. I was only stripping those that were ready to be harvested that day. So height can definitely be a factor from weather, conditions, day length, water. So we have a lot of people that have a lot of snow still. All right, so I'm seeing Jesse's putting a lot of great so Jess says, I would like to try Bio 360 with my Lisianthus this year. For sure. Lisianthus is one of the crops. In fact, that's why our Lisianthus is not planted yet. It's still sitting out here on the carport because I've got to get some on a bed, and we didn't anyway. Long story short, the bed's not ready. And so Lisianthus, because Lisianthus doesn't cover the surface of the bed very well to help compete with weeds, I've done it both ways. Whenever I have not used Bio 360 with Lizzie, we hated ourselves for the rest of the season. I mean, it's like we just stand there and shake our head. So Lisianthus gets 8 rows, and the Lisianthus beds need to have a nice smooth top. So when you put the Bio 360 down, it lays flatly on the top and down the sides. And then Bobo is the queen of making the tiniest holes, because we put 8 rows across the bed of Lisianthus. That's a lot of holes. And you just have to just know, if it's your first time using Bio 360, it's a learning curve. But I can tell you, making sure your bed is flat on top and it's raised, and you have enough Bio 360 beyond that to scrape soil up to secure it, and then make your holes as small as possible. It's when wind gets under the Bio 360 that it rips it. And I'm talking from firsthand experience. All right. I'm just looking. I just appreciate that y'all are having these conversations and connecting. So this is Maddie. Maddie, that was Steve's grandma's name that built this place that I live. I've learned so much from you and excited about my new journey. I've had no problem with any of my seed starting, except for straw flowers and celosia. They won't germinate. Are those trickier? So first off, straw flowers are a cool flower. So they like cooler conditions, and celosia is a hot one. So or a warm season tender annual. And I don't know where you are, Maddie, but it's typically you're not starting both of those at the same time, because they really like different conditions. The other thing about straw flowers is we have learned that straw flowers, like larkspur, is a seed that we buy fresh every single year and replenish our seeds at the Gardener's Workshop, because their seeds, whether it's the suppliers that are supplying them, sit on them, or what, but we have found that sometimes seeds just aren't viable. So that is A. B, and I cannot remember, and I don't have a cool flowers close by here for me to actually look it up. I don't remember if straw flowers get covered with soil or not, if they need light or not. And they like warmth, not hot. like on the seedling heat mat. So we use the cookie cooling rack with them. Celosia likes it hot, and it's still too early for us to even start celosias yet. So they would be directly on a seedling heat mat on their tray, and they're surface sown. And we use the burlap, which I just saw the burlap. Here it is. The burlap. This is the wide weave burlap. That we lay on top of our blocks. That just helps to retain moisture, but it allows air to circulate and get in there. And it is especially helpful with those surface sown seeds. All right. So Jess says, you literally have to convince people they're sunflowers. My favorite is plum. Me too. So the plum is a bicolor. It's got like a buttercream background with a maroony wine kind of blush on it. And that's the thing. I mean, even when they're small orange ones, and I'm going to tell you this, and then I'm out of here, y'all. We got 4 minutes. I got to go. Back years and years ago, when I was very much what I was just speaking of, how day length can make the blooms get smaller, I planted them way into fall, much further than I thought that they would actually make it. And they did, but the blooms got smaller. Well, instead of changing my wholesale price of what I would normally sell 10 sunflowers for, I just put like twice as many stems, because instead of being this big, they were like this big, right? Well, I was so nervous about taking them because I had standing orders for them. So I was so nervous about taking them to my florist. And the very first one that I went to, who was my toughest customer, was not there. I mean, he wasn't in the shop yet. His people were there. So I just had to leave him. Well, I was like all in knots thinking, oh my gosh, he's not going to like them, or he's going to think they're too small. Oh my gosh. Before I could even get home from delivering, y'all, he called and left a message and said, I want 20 more bunches of those. Those are awesome. Well, they looked like little daisies that were orange they look like the classic orange with brown sunflower. But he had never seen them before. Nobody had. But why are sunflowers so great like that? Because they last forever. I mean, it's the sunflowers. People just don't get it. So follow along with me all season to find out more about how we change this up to keep the blooms small in the middle of the season. So you need to be getting yourself sunflowers, trays, and hit the books, y'all, because we are going to turn... if next time you go to the grocery store, take a look at the sunflowers that are in bouquets. They're horrible. We have I never cracked their code. One of the supermarkets that I sold to bought a lot of flowers from us, but they would not buy my sunflower bunches because they had a contract with a grower somewhere here on the East Coast, but the sunflowers were shipped. And all of the petals, they were so horrible looking. The petals were so shriveled. They're half open. They never finish opening. They were buying them so cheap that they just would not even consider buying mine. And the night, I could stand there and say, because corporate, of course, is who makes that decision. I could stand there and say, look at these horrible, dead looking ones, and look how gorgeous these are. These are going to last your customers 2 weeks. And because they cost twice as much, they were paying like $2 or something for a bunch of 3 or something. And, go and look at the sunflowers in the supermarkets. And it's because the petals get dehydrated through shipping, whether they're ethylene sensitive, they get put in with other stuff. There is an endless opportunity for it to be a big part of your offering. I'm not suggesting because you couldn't do it, because that's what's wrong with the people that I'm talking about. That's all they grew were sunflowers, and they didn't do it very well at all. And that's what happens when you have 2 tons of one thing to sell and you have to sell it far and wide. So friends, until we meet again, I will see you. Let's see, today's Saturday. I'll see you Wednesday. I will not see you Wednesday. I forget who's taking over Instagram on Wednesday. We have a stellar lineup for Ask a Flower Farmer this month. Many of our instructors, including Amelia, plus Daniel Shavy, Dave Dowling, Ellen, and I think, I'm not sure who and Jonathan just did it, Jonathan Lease. So you won't be seeing me on Wednesday. So I'll see you Wednesday afternoon for the Shop and Show Express, and then again on Friday, and then again here on Saturday. All right, friends, till we meet again. Now I'm going to clean up the mess of my favorite broken terracotta dish that I broke seconds before I came on here. Dadgummit. All right, friends. Ciao.